Shall We Begin? 2016 version by Handsome Gilbert. Prussia leant against a large window atop of a neon-illuminated cyberpunk skyscraper and stared mournfully out of it. Hundreds of other colossal buildings dominated the landscape, stretching up to the sky, bustling with daintily maneuvering air traffic. The streets below were lit up by the city's perpetually glaring lights and computer monitors, distorted by clouds of smog that rose and lingered ominously. He looked down towards the humans who lived out their feeble, short lives. The sun shone through a construction site in front of him, creating distinctive rays of orange light, which illuminated the mostly empty room he stood in and created long shadows. Sunlight shone onto Prussia's face, but his red bionic eyes prevented him from having to look away. His hair was greasy and unkempt, and it was due to be replaced by synthetics. Gilbert perched beside him on a desk. "You really don't care for them anymore, do you?" Gilbert asked.
"Not anymore,"
replied Prussia, without turning around. His voice altered by a prosthetic voice box after his vocal cords had decomposed. Despite sounding different, Prussia retained his German accent. After a long pause, he finally continued.
"All humans who believed in me have died out. They were only trying to keep me in line anyway. I should be glad they're all dead."
"Are you glad they're all dead?"
Yes. Being alone is better,"
said Prussia, nodding. Prussia turned and looked at Gilbert. Although his face was no longer capable of displaying much emotion, he wanted to show Gilbert that he was sure of what he had said. "Your dead citizens were only trying to keep you in line," agreed Gilbert flatly. Gilbert had died a long time ago, yet Prussia liked to believe that he was still there for him to talk to. It mitigated the pain of loneliness. After decades, perhaps even centuries, of talking to Gilbert, Prussia had easily forgotten that his feathered companion was imaginary. Believing in Gilbert was becoming inadvertently easier for Prussia now that silicon and fiber-optic cables were beginning to take hold of his decaying brain. Prussia displayed an extensive list of mental illness symptoms as he whittled away, resulting in an almost complete rewiring of his brain. His eyes no longer functioned either. He went blind in one eye, then the other. New bionic eyes with laser tracking and thermal optics were fitted to his head. Prussia was on a slippery slope to complete mechanization, while the alternative was to decompose like a corpse. It would be a slow way to die, a fate that his predecessors had to suffer. "You used to be the very ground humans walked on, and now look what you've become. Redundant," said Gilbert. Upon hearing this, Prussia punched Gilbert, but to no effect. Prussia could only punch with his left hand, because his right hand had mutilated almost beyond recognition. Flesh and bones were ripped away, a painful reminder of what was happening to him. He gave up trying to hurt Gilbert and slumped down.
"Damn it, I don't want to die,"
he mumbled meekly, before sitting down with his back to the window and legs close to his body. "Don't worry." Gilbert hopped down in front of Prussia and spoke gently. "Technology will keep you alive." Prussia looked at Gilbert.
"And is being a machine really a way to live?"
"Yes, it is," said Gilbert simply. His words, projected through Prussia's subconscious, were influenced by the programming of Prussia's new benefactors. It was a few seconds before either Prussia or Gilbert said anything. Eventually, Gilbert asked, "Do you think you are still human? Do you think you were ever a human?" Prussia chuckled sadly.
"Does it even matter? My thoughts and actions are already under the influence of a computer. Is that to compensate for my broken brain? Or is it to alter my personality completely? In the end, I suppose I'll feel no different.
Prussia's lips began to shakily curve upwards.
Dr. Schaefer says my prosthetics are just the tip of the iceberg. After today's upgrade, my emotions will be influenced through algorithms. Imagine that! I'll be able to feel again.
What emotions? Gilbert was beginning to annoy Prussia again.
Huh?
Prussia retorted. You were always resolute, always fighting to your cause. You always suppressed your emotions, Gilbert began.
Yeah, well, I was created to fight,
said Prussia wistfully. It was the humans, said Gilbert. After all, you are nothing but a figment of their collective imaginations. And those emotions you have felt were under the influence of those within your borders. You, as a person, had no control over them.
Emotions? Like love?
Said Prussia quietly.
I think the only people, no, nations I've ever loved are Germany, who now hates me, and Hungary.
She's still alive, even in this century, said Gilbert. You can see her after being discharged from the facility.
I'm not going to see her,
said Prussia firmly. How come? Gilbert tilted his head.
I think she hates me too. I was a complete ass to her. She thinks I'm dead now.
Prussia sighed. I don't blame Hungary for hating you, said Gilbert, much to Prussia's annoyance. And Germany? Asked Gilbert. Do you think you will ever see him again?
I don't want to,
said Prussia scornfully.
I used to be happy for him. I was proud of what he accomplished. Then he pushed me aside. He's trying to kill me. He's subsuming my territory and citizens. It's not just the humans that are trying to kill me. It's him. I'm going to destroy Germany.
Really now, are you? Asked Gilbert sarcastically. Or will you just wait for him to be dissolved by the UN and corporations? The heavy, blast-proof door to Prussia's room opened, and Dr. Schaefer entered. She was perhaps one of the most brilliant scientists Prussia had working for him. She wore a long lab coat with messy red and black stains and electronic paper stuffed into all her pockets. Mr. Beilschmidt, the technicians are ready for your upgrade now. Shall we begin? Prussia stood up and wearily walked towards her.
Yes,
he replied. Why don't you check out the HetaTube DeviantArt account at hetatube.deviantart.com. The link is in the description.